Thanks for joining today. I know we've got a lot going on the conference always builds a backlog of work, but I'd love to share what we reviewed there and some of the things that we worked on, as well as some stuff coming up. So thanks for joining today, even though I know you guys are super busy. Um, so we can just jump right into things. It looks like we've got a great group. As people filter in, I'm sure they can tag on the end of the agenda here. So we'll go through our normal updates, and I forgot to include a state update slide in this deck. But after the 3 for the Nation project updates, I'd love to hear from anyone who has some state updates on whether or not you submitted DCAs, or anything that you have going on you'd like to share. We'll go through a recap of what we did at the annual conference, and then we've got a contributed data survey out. It is available on my NSGIC. I'll cover that a little bit, just to give you some information there. And then really the bulk of what I'd like to spend our time on today is the 3D NTM planning guide. For those who weren't able to make the conference, we had a great workshop, and I'd love to get your perspective, because the state team is, in my opinion, really where it starts for all things 3D. So with that, I did see that Brian joined the meeting, and we've got some USGS stuff going on here. Brian, can you give us a quick rundown on USGS?
Yeah, Jordan, how you doing? I feel like we've covered this pretty good. Got it on last week. We got it on Monday, so I don't have a whole lot to share here. This is um, the most recent version of the map. That's the status of the acquisition projects for 24. I think that has just about everything. Um, Alaska's hard to see. I think that Michelle got it all in there though. So those were the projects for FY24, and we have the stats down there. Was just under 100,000 square miles for the DCA, and other partnerships equals our federal partners. We have a couple times non-federal folks come to us when they don't ask for cost shares. They don't have to submit a DCA if they don't ask for a cost share. And so that's why there's non-federal partners and other partners, partnerships category there. Some contributed data, which uh, uh, adds up to just under 220,000 square miles. So all in all, including contributed data, federal partnerships, non-federal projects, DCAs, we did about 320,000 square miles of acquisition this fiscal year. I can't say this one anymore. Last fiscal year, it's FY25 now. Time flies. And then I will just say we received just about 20 project submissions for FY25, and just got out of evaluation committee meetings with my team to review them. And I would think by next month we'll be able to start showing some of the newer projects that are coming together for FY25. And so unless folks have questions, I'm going to stop there because I think you guys have all heard this message, and we'll have more to share as the acquisition plan for FY25 starts coming together.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Awesome to hear you got 20 project submissions already. That's a huge number considering last year, I think,
Yeah, we're happy with it.
14.
It looks good. There's some good diversity in there, and certainly excited about it.
Cool. Anyone have questions for Brian? Check the chat. I don't see any hands or anything.
Cool.
If you raise your hand, sorry if I missed you. It doesn't look like it. Great. Thank you, Brian. I know we beat these slides into the ground, but appreciate you.
It's all good, man. Happy to do it.
We'll keep cruising. And thank you for, running through stuff for folks who might not have been there. I don't want anyone to have FOMO. But awesome progress in FY24. And thanks for everyone for the contributions there. It's great to see this map filling out. All right. On the NSGIC side of things, we have published the new 3 for the Nation information hub. And Lindsay dropped a link to that hub in the chat. I'm going to update this URL. I recently was informed that I can customize that so that it is not so ArcGIS-y and more NSGIC-y. So if you can check that out, I'd super appreciate any feedback, especially regarding your state information. So a few folks, after I originally published this, replied with some updated links that they wanted me to include and some other information that was really helpful to start rounding out the state profiles. So if you check out your state on the web map and the links don't quite look right, or that's not where you would direct someone to information about your state's LiDAR program, just let me know and I'll go ahead and update that. I just did a manual crawl for all of those links when I put it together. So the hub is out there. If you have not yet joined the 3 user group on LinkedIn, please do. Love to see someone contribute. I think I've seen a couple of folks put some posts up there, but I'd love to see how folks are using data and start building a catalog of use cases that we can include on the NSGIC resources. Also, I've been doing state LiDAR program highlights. Today, I just put out Texas because we were just there. If you'd love to see your state highlighted, just shoot me a message with any information that you'd like to include in there, and I will put that in the queue. Other than that, we've got the contributed data challenges. I think this has come up over the last couple of meetings, but we do have a plan to address the contributed data challenges, and I'll go over that in a little more detail later in the deck. And then we're also working on creating some shared resources more directed to how do you organize a elevation program or an imagery program, and how do you fund it separate and distinct from 3DEP, but definitely a huge amount of overlap there. So that's what we've got going on the NSGIC side of things. Does anyone have any questions there or comments or feedback? All right, cool.
Jordan, I just want to say, I want to give you some props. I thought what you did and I thought the session on the planning guide at the meeting was really good. I was really enjoyed the conversation in my group. I thought you and Linda did a great job with that. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge that. I think, folks that are on this call, you haven't had a chance to meet Jordan in person. He's just been a tremendous asset to the 3DEP program and the agreement that we have with NSGIC. He's really got great ideas and doing some great things. And I just want to say thank you to him. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that a lot, Brian. And yeah, I mean, it was a fun workshop. I got a ton of ideas, and that's what I love getting folks together and hearing different perspectives, because there are a lot of stuff that came up that we hadn't even thought about yet. So um, thank you very much. And it's a team effort, obviously. I don't do it all by myself. Uh, Linda's been huge. Okay, cool. So moving on. Thank you, Brian. Oh, that button doesn't work. Annual conference recap. So this is a point cloud of San Antonio. I've been playing around with the Epitium viewer a lot lately, which is an offshoot of the LiDAR Explorer. It's a USGS product, which I really like. So if you guys haven't had a chance to play around with that, you can see the raw point clouds really nicely, really quickly. So that's cool. But anyway, I'm sure you all have played with that a little bit. But so we did open up the contributed data challenges survey. So that is available on the MyNISCHIC state team community in MyNISCHIC. So if you have not yet opened up that survey or sent it in, please do. I'm going to keep those open through the end of November. I was originally going to do it through the end of the year, but I'd like that data. I'd like to put a little bit of a more urgent deadline on there. So I'll cover that in the next slide as well. And then we had a really awesome 3D NTM planning guide workshop. That's what Brian was just mentioning. This was on the first day of the conference, bright and early. Folks showed up and it was really great energy. We broke up into discussion groups of, I think, 10 or so people per group. and just collaborated on what do you want to see in a planning guide, and just shared a lot of really good ideas. Some folks had already reviewed the planning guide. Some folks were coming in completely unaware of what was in there, and it made for a great mix of ideas and perspectives. And so I'd like to run through that a little bit here as well to get the perspectives of anyone who wasn't able to make the annual conference. And then in 3D NTM, that is the overarching umbrella that includes 3D elevation program and the 3D hydrography program. So that 3D NTM moniker, um, I'd like to start putting out there a little more to get the branding going. And then we had a breakout breakfast on Tuesday. Again, that was really great. We, had a little bit of an audible and ended up just hosting that around tables at the back of the room, but gave some project updates and then heard from a few states around the successes that their states are having, some challenges that they're facing. But overall, that was a nice short, brief breakfast to, just kind of get together and share our 3D NTM experiences. That's what we did at the conference. Does anyone have any questions around what we did at the conference? We'll get into the planning guide and a little bit about the contributed data in the next couple of slides. All right, cool. I feel like I'm just marching ahead here. So if I'm going too fast, please feel free to stop me. I would like to get into the discussion though, which is always the best part. So contributed data challenges survey. I'm going to drop this link into the chat. If you don't have it yet, that is available and open. Let me know if you have any issues accessing the survey. I worked with a few folks to get the questions together on this survey. And so there was a team of GIOs and then the state team liaison, the federal work group liaisons had a chance to review this before we sent it out. So we made this so that none of these questions are mandatory. So you can share this within your organization, or at least your specific link within your organization and fill it out over time. You don't have to get stuck by anything. But the idea behind the survey is to really help us understand the scope of the issue, things that states are doing in order to try to mitigate the problem or the challenge of contributed data not being validated by NG-Talk and the downstream effects that's having on 3D HP or other things within a state. So the idea is to gather this data, understand the scope, and then put together a really thoughtful letter, not just complaining to USGS, because USGS, they know about the problem, they are working to solve it, but just adding a little bit of context, but also informing states and business partners about what all three of those stakeholder classes can do to help mitigate the problem going forward and bring up some potential solutions. So we plan on drafting this letter and issuing it before the NSGIC mid-year meeting next spring. So we've got some time to work on this. So if you can get those responses in before the end of November, that would be awesome. I will begin poking a little more frequently as that deadline nears. So if this is something that's impacting your state, I'd love to hear from you. Does anyone have questions around the contributed data survey or the plan around drafting a letter or anything like that? We got a sleepy group today. That's okay. Sorry, I don't mean to call you sleepy. All right,
It's
cool.
true.
Thank
I'm not
you,
offended.
Patrick. I appreciate that. We are not alone in here. Okay, so 3D NTM planning guide. So this is what I'd like to spend the bulk of our time on today. In the mid-year meeting or at the annual meeting was really basic. We didn't go through a lot of detail or give people a lot of priming on what was in the planning guide. The link is out there and circulating. If you've had a chance to see it, fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to review the planning guide, even better, in my opinion, because what we really want to know is what are you even looking for in a planning guide? Where have there been moments in your state where you've thought to yourself, man, what could we do? How do other states organize their program? What could we do Like when you go to the planning guide, what are you looking for? What questions are you looking to answer? So I'd love to break out into groups and of five. So we'll break out into three groups here and just discuss. And this is the exercise that we did a little bit at the conference. So we broke out into groups. We just went around and discussed what are you looking for? What kind of challenges are you looking to solve? So in your group, you'll need to assign someone to be a recorder and to share that information back here. I'm going to capture that information and then we can incorporate it into that planning guide so that it works for people and it's not just academia that we're putting out there. So does anyone have questions about okay, great. Okay, Brian's stepping away. No worries. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you joining. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna break out. And does anyone have questions on what we're doing in the breakout here? We'll break out for just maybe 5 minutes and then we'll come back and share. No, that's not long enough. We'll do 7 minute breakout, discuss what are you looking for in a planning guide? Don't worry if you haven't had a chance to look at this planning guide. We're just looking for the questions you're looking to answer that we can help with. So we'll do 3 breakout rooms. Great. And we'll see you guys back here in about 7 minutes. All right, cool. Well, thank you, everyone. Hopefully you had as good of a conversation as we had in our group. Um, and hopefully everyone assigned someone to present the conversation back here so that I can gather that data and incorporate it into the planning guide. Does anyone, I'd like to have room one go first if you're copacetic to that. So I think that was the room with John Jordan uh, and Co. Does anyone, can someone from room one present?
And do everybody. Paul Dudley, state of Tennessee. So we talked about a couple of things. The first thing being, and I guess again the question was right, like what sorry, my family just got home, so my dog's gonna go a little crazy. But what are you looking for in a planning guide? And one of the things we talked about was trying, a lot of the states we had New York, Jeff and Janet from Illinois, and then John as well. Is that we have these programs in place already and trying to find consistent funding to like develop a 5-year plan. Right now, our funding is all kind of piecemeal, right? We have a patchwork of collections. So coming up with some way to create a plan, but it's based on patchwork funding, right? You don't have secured and consistent funding. Another thing was, in New York and Illinois both do this, are buy-ups. And so it may be helpful to get some language on maybe a contract, some contract language or something like that that revolves around vegetation classification or buy-ups for buildings and things like that, like what to look for or how to structure something like that. I know not all states do that. We don't do it in Tennessee. We did buy up for buildings, but that's a kind of a different piece. They're like, I think New York, your example, Jeff, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It was you're looking for local partners to buy up, so they can buy up for vegetation classification or buildings if they want it at the, let's say, a county or local level. And the last piece was we talked about C-Sketch, and I think we talked about this at the conference. I can't really remember, and that it would be great if state partners could put potential areas of interest into something like C-Sketch. And maybe, I don't know, there may be something there for either NSGIC and your ArcGIS Online organization to kind of create or collaborate on. I thought about trying to create something, at the state level to see what my partners in particular were interested in, but as a planning tool that may be very useful. And that's what we talked.
That's super interesting, Paul. Because I've heard the angle of, states would love to participate in C-Sketch, but if the feds have that on lock, we could just build that on NISCHIC. on the info hub. That's a really good idea.
States
Cool.
used to be able to contribute projects to C-Sketch, but it was kind of hand built, and the name of the young lady that used to do it, I forget, but you'd have to send her your shape files in the spring and coordinate, but that only stopped a couple of years ago. It was
It
fairly recent.
was a federal law that I had this conversation with Brian, and for some reason they had to remove it, that capability. And I don't recall what the details about it, but it was kind of squirrely. Seemed backwards, but it,
Cool. Well,
yeah.
definitely something I'll be adding to my to-do list is I don't know if that's necessarily something to go into a planning guide, but this is super interesting thread to pull on. But great, thank you, Paul, for those contributions. Definitely in line, but also new from the conference, which is why I love having these conversations in so many different places. So room two, I don't remember. I might have been in room two, but
I think you were.
well, then I'll go last. I don't want to go. Let's see, Abby, how was your room? Or who's representing that room? Whoever was in with Abby and Lindsay.
I actually don't know if we gave ourselves a representative, but I did take notes, so I'll go ahead.
Great.
So, we talked about use cases as being, definitely something other states might want to see. What other states have done and how do other states get partnerships? That's in line with what was said from room one. But also maybe highlighting some of the barriers or expectations that we've come across in different projects before, or some of the expectations around the data itself. When is it ready? How long is it going to take? Continuing to update the message, why is it important, and clarify some of the reasonings behind that. How to make state programs efficient through 3DEP or through their own programs. Internal QA/QC, potentially. Definitely derivative products. How do we store them? The fact that they might be customized for each state, so we don't have kind of a set list of derivative products. Could be an infinite number of derivative products that people might want to create. So how do you plan around that? Dissemination is still an issue for some states, or there's some fixes that some states have come across. How long will those be around? Can we depend on those? And also state partnership between states. Each state has worked on plans potentially for their own state or is in the midst of doing that. But oftentimes, especially for 3DHP, you have projects that will need to cross the border, or will be advantageous to collect on two sides of two different states at the same time to create temporally consistent data. How do you plan for that and work with other states? We also mentioned, sometimes, I'm sure this is true of every state, but I've certainly run into this, the odd cases that weren't really normal. You came across something that happened out of the blue, or you've had a partner want to add on at the last minute. How do you handle some of that to kind of maybe plan a little bit for those strange things that have popped up? I don't know if I can give an example, but we have had, partners want to come in at the last minute, or we've had partners say, oh my gosh, I need the data before I thought, it's an emergency. How do we get preliminary data? Things of that nature.
Cool.
And
Wow, you
anybody
guys covered a lot of
can
ground.
add anything.
You covered a lot of ground. This is great. Okay, great. Anything else, Abby? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, if I forgot anything, anyone from my room can add. Feel free.
Cool. All right. Thank you. This is all really rich stuff. In our room, we of course talked about how to find funding and sustainable funding. And the idea was brought about creating a matrix using states that are having success finding funding on where the funding is coming from, how it's structured, how they went about securing that funding, and just adding a little more structure and data around funding. Right now, it's just lists in there, and that's not super helpful, but maybe a little bit more about how do you actually go about securing this. Shayna talked about a really interesting use case on regarding the NRCS ACPF tool and using funds that are going to a particular project and then kind of leveraging that in order to secure a 3D HP DCA. So it sounds like Illinois is testing whether or not that will work. And so hopefully we'll see if that's if they do find success there, we can share that back out as something other states can do. We had a little bit of conversation around disaster declaration funds and how to secure those, or whether or not that's the most efficient way to fund a program. So that was interesting. I'd like to dive into that a little bit deeper in the future. I don't think we need to get into that now. And then we talked about timelines, but Nate brought up that it's not just important for the state and the program to understand the timelines, but how to effectively communicate those timelines within the state organization and to the public. So resources around not just what those timelines could or should be, but how do you communicate that and convey that so that people have reasonable expectations. And then we had a discussion around map liaisons, the role of map liaisons. It sounds like some states have a really strong relationship with map liaisons and get like incredibly detailed updates. Other states, struggle there. So maybe this is what a model relationship with the map liaison looks like and how you can engage your map liaison effectively. So that's what came out of our room. Did I miss anything, guys?
No, I think that covers it.
All right, cool.
I would say this, there was a suggestion on that last point of maybe we could go back to USGS and ask for online interface for all the active projects, so we could just go see statuses rather than have to go through the liaisons to ask for status reports and getting back information in different ways.
Yeah, let me write that down. I missed that nuance there, and I think that's an important nuance. So USGS map of project status.
Yes, rather than saying this liaison is great and this one isn't doing this, and devolving into personalities, because sometimes they're not getting the information chain in the right way either. So maybe it can be improved for both states and the regional liaisons.
Cool.
Yeah, for example, I know that our map liaison here in California, he has some level of access to track the individual work units within each project. I don't know how many other states have large number of work units within projects, but we have multiple large projects that have between 7 and 14 work units in them, and they're able to give me a weekly readout on each one of those work units, where it is between being revised by the vendor, having just been received by the vendor, being under review by USGS, having been accepted, and something that gives that level of granularity to folks on the state side that are needing to manage projects and the expectations associated with them could be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So that's something I can take to Ryan even before we include something like that in the planning guide. So glad that you added that nuance, Shayna, and thank you for the additional context, Nate. Cool. Anybody else have anything you want to contribute regarding the 3D NTM planning guide or questions? Great. We're reaching the end of the hour. I know these are scheduled for an hour and a half, but I do like to let you guys go at the hour. I think the last thing I got is a reminder. The October 15th marks the end of the year 1 of the NSGIC 3DEP for the Nation Cooperative Agreement. So the year 2 begins, and I'll be putting out some reports in association with that. And then our next state team meeting is November 6th. Stay tuned for the next information group meeting. I will have that scheduled. I'm targeting either December or January. So I'll leave you with a reminder to fill out that contributed data survey. Would love to get your responses and appreciate your participation in today's meeting. Thanks, everyone.